So today I'm going to be putting in the Foutz 1.5" front perch collar kit, as well as the 3/4 inch rear kit. This is what I had in my 2023. I had the Foutz 3/4 inch rears, and then I actually had the RPG front collars. I bought this kit previously owned off of Marketplace. These go for about $250. These go for about $250 as well, and I bought them for $225 used. So there are good deals out there. You really can't hurt them. Obviously, as long as nothing's stripped, you should be able to use it numerous times. These are the retainers that go on the Fox front strut. That's what these are replacing. These are only about 3/4 inch, but with the geometry of the front suspension as it goes out, you get about 1.5 inches of lift total. So let's go ahead and get it installed. First step here is going to be to pop off the front wheel. Okay, so I'm actually going to attempt to do this without taking this upper control arm loose or without taking the strut assembly out. That's exactly what I did on my 2023. We just unthread the top of our spring compressor, run it up through here, thread it back on. There's just not enough clearance to get the spring compressor through. Once we do that, we snug it up, tighten up our spring. There is a trick that I did last time with a bar, ran it up through this hole here with a bottle jack underneath it, and really what it did is it put pressure on the back side of the springs and kept this up here in this bucket. That way you can hammer loose this lower spring perch and then pop the retainers out and then put your collar on there, and it'll shift this up about 3/4 inch. Okay, so we'll be using this very inexpensive kit. I got it off Amazon. I know you can get them at any auto parts store. I know a lot of people cringe at the thought of using these because they're very cheap and they can be very, very dangerous. I probably get a lot of grief for not taking that out. It's a very expensive truck, but it worked last time. I didn't feel like I was putting myself in danger. Hopefully I'm not this time, but I'll get the spring compressor mounted in there and show you what it looks like. Okay, so we've got it mounted in here. Again, like I said, I just unthreaded this, ran this threaded rod up through the upper control arm, and then rethreaded it back in the top. Same thing here. I have them mounted. This one's the second rung up. This one's the first one. It just happened to be kind of where they fell. But we'll go ahead and get them snugged up and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've got these cinched up a little bit. You can see that I freed up a little over 1 inch of space here. That gives me room to hammer up that lower perch collar, get the new spacer in there, and then lower it back down, obviously. I mentioned that I use a bottle jack with a pry bar on the back. There's only just a little bit of pressure. It's really just to hold the spring up. So again, nothing feels too crazy just yet, but we'll keep going. Okay, so after a little bit of persuasion with this 32-ounce hammer here, I was able to get this lower spring perch to come up enough. And then as you see, these little retainers just pop right out. And then the new collars slide right in there. I'm gonna just clean that up with some brake clean, just to make sure there's no debris in there, so it's a nice seated fit for the new collars. So I found an interesting difference with these versus the RPG collars that I had on my other truck. So with the RPG collars, this actually came out, and then there's a groove in the back of this that would slide in that slot in the strut. These ones actually go over top of that retainer. See how it sits on there like that? Little different setup. I actually like this better because you don't have to take those retainers out. For instance, if you ever wanted to go back to stock, if you lose these retainers, I guess they're very, very difficult to come by. So this is actually probably a little better designed. So kudos to Foutz. Okay, so we've got it all back together. You can see that's that collar. There's a little clip here that I had to pop out just to make sure I could get this in here. That pops right back in, and it's just a zip tie, so that's all fastened back in its factory spot. But we'll get the other side on, we'll get the truck let back down, we'll get a look at it, and then we'll get started on the rear. So I did skip over to this side, but same result, same thing. Use the compressors to compress the spring through the collar in there. Everything went as planned. Again, I know a lot of people cringe at this and think, you know, why would you use those cheap spring compressors? Why not pop that strut out? You know, I'm usually a, you know, if you're going to do it right kind of person myself, but I did prove to myself last time that I could do this, and it went very, very quickly. The first side takes probably half hour. The side I think I did in less than 20 minutes. As with any project out in the garage, one side always seems to go a little faster than the other. But we'll get the tires back on, get another shot of it. So here's a side shot with the front end all installed. I foolishly did not measure the front end before I got started. I think I was just a little bit excited to get going. But if we measure it, we are at just under 42, 41 and 15/16. If we sneak over to the back here, right in the center of the wheel, we're right at 42. So by the time we get that 3/4 inch spacer in there, this is going to have just a little bit of rake, which I think will help it a lot. As far as aesthetics, it's exactly what I had on my 23, and it looked very nice. Now I will have this aligned. I actually have an appointment tomorrow, and I'm going to have them throw about 5 degrees of caster in that front wheel, just to shift it forward a little. That'll prevent me from having to do a bunch of trimming. The tires are 37/12/50 that are going on it on a 0 offset wheel. On my 23, I did a little trimming inside here, and then realized that all I had to do was throw that caster in there. So once we got it aligned, I realized I had plenty of clearance. So I'm going to try that on this one before I do any cutting. It's never a good feeling on a brand new truck. But let's go ahead and get the rear end installed, and we'll show you. Unfortunately, I didn't capture any of this on video, but as you can tell, I do have my rear lift spacers already installed. I simply use 2 jacks, one underneath the receiver and one underneath the suspension mount here where it connects to the frame. As you can tell, my jack stands unfortunately are not tall enough. I do have it in 4 high with wheel shocks on the front wheel to make sure nothing moves as we jack the rear of the truck up. As you can tell, we have to jack it up very, very high to relieve tension on that coil. Even still, I had to use my spring compressors on here just to get enough tension off of this. I then used a small pry bar to move the top of the spring out of the bucket, just shift it off to the side. I then installed the spacers, just obviously installed these 2 bolts, cinch those down. You can slide the coil back in and start to relieve tension. There is a centering tube here just to make sure everything's aligned. It slides into the top of this bushing. There's obviously a hole as well. You know, just watch where your fingers are. You have to be very conscious at any point that if one of your spring compressors failed or one of the jacks failed, that, you know, your finger's not in a real vulnerable position. So just use a little common sense with that. But now that we've got those installed, we'll lower the jacks down. I'll get another measurement from the ground up to this fender flare just to see if we got a true 3/4 of an inch of lift. So there's a side shot of what it looks like with the front and rear end. If you remembered, we measured this last time. It was exactly 42 inches. So if we check now, about 42 3/4. So it is a true 3/4 inch spacer. I'm gonna have this aligned again, like I said, tomorrow, and throw that little bit of caster in it. We'll get the 37s on, and then I'll show you what it looks like all finished up. Okay, so it's actually been about 2 weeks since I did the leveling kit. Things kind of switched up. My wife's Ranger Raptor came in, so we picked a set of wheels for hers, and I decided I wanted to go the exact same route. So these are the stock 35s on a Rocktrix RT111 17/9 -12 offset. I've got just some Ford center caps on there. They're just a sticky from eBay. I like the looks of it. I don't really care for the Rocktrix. I did have it aligned. I did have them throw the 5 degrees of positive caster in it so I can run my 37s if I want, but I just really like the looks of this, to be honest with you. The 35s, they handle well, they're quiet, it still gets good mileage. I mentioned my wife's Ranger Raptor. We kind of did the exact same theme. Did the orange tow hooks on this. Again, running the Rocktrix RT111 with the Ford center caps. And then we did just a orange Raptor logo just to match. But this has an 1.5 inch leveling kit as well. These are a positive 12 offset for anybody that's interested in a Ranger, just to give you an idea of the amount of poke. I think they were positive 55 stock, so they sat inside the wheel well quite a ways. But very happy with how this turned out. I've ran Rocktrix on 2 of my trucks in the past, and it will clear with a -12 offset without doing any leveling kit or anything. So if anybody's interested in that, definitely recommend these for the price. I've had 0 issues with quality, balancing, anything. I think I paid like $580 shipped right to the house, so you really can't beat it. All of Rocktrix's options kind of mirror what the methods look like, so I think that's what really attracted me to them. But there's the truck. We'll actually do a comparison between her truck and mine, just to, you know, see which one's faster, maybe do a few options, comparisons, likes, dislikes, things like that. So hopefully I can post that here within the next week, but appreciate everybody watching, and more videos to come.